What's up, everybody? It is
Hey guys,
two Dynamite dudes with attitude. And
is this the new title?
this is the new title. This is what we're going with, man. Well,
All
like
right, two
the fact that
Dynamite.
we last week you brought up Diesel and Sean in comparison to Wardlow and MJF, plus your fandom of Kevin Nash. It only made sense to make it two Dynamite dudes with attitude. So.
It's all coming together, Dom.
It's all happening. All happening. This is Dominic D'Angelo of WrestleZone.com. A very sweaty, very dog day afternoon. Attica screaming Dominic D'Angelo because I'm just sweating like nuts over in Pittsburgh. Marcus is in the boonies up in Pittsburgh area. Marcus, how are you? This is my brother Marcus, by the way.
Hi everybody. Yeah, I'm doing great. It is very hot. Glad we're approaching the weekend and maybe we'll get to stay inside. This weather's been a little rough.
I know. Oh man, gonna tip back a couple cold ones here and there.
That's right. Back up to the hometown this weekend for you and I, Dom.
Back up to the hometown this week. It should be interesting. Mighty interesting time. Well, let's get your thoughts on how interesting AEW Dynamite was last night. What overall, what did you think there, champ?
Overall, pretty good program. So there were some gems. There were a couple turds, but by and large, I thought it was a great program. Shocked, Dominic, positively shocked to see that AEW fell to NXT in the ratings for another week.
You were shocked. See, that's what I expected to kind of happen at this point because I was shocked more so last week than I was at this week. Because, I thought maybe not. I don't want to say it was necessarily a fluke, but I didn't think maybe it was just something that just kind of happened for the first week when NXT won, and then going into next week, I was like, well, they have 3 title matches on the line. There's no way that they would lose in the ratings, and then they ended up losing the majority of the ratings. And then this week, I kind of was like, okay, well, they got the big title versus title match going on NXT with Adam Cole and Keith Lee. I was like, you can't. I was like, that's a big match. So I wasn't too shocked about it this week. But yeah, Marcus? If you're kind of helmeting it, if you're Mr. Tony Khan there, what's the course of correction here, if there is one at this point in time?
Well,
from immediate perspective, not long term.
I guess, Dom. There's you got to strike while the iron's hot, and by that I mean WWE went ahead and released a lot of talent when the COVID struck, as we know. That I think they released a total of 19 people, somewhere in that neighborhood. And so just like WCW had to. And by the way, folks, most of my references are going to date back to the early to late 90s, so brace yourselves. But just like WCW had to, as they were competing with WWF back in the day, they started using their resources, which Tony Khan has, allegedly greater resources than Vince McMahon has, right? Net worth of $8 billion versus Vince McMahon's net worth of $2 billion.
Is that true? I mean, like you got. I mean, obviously Shad Khan's a huge billionaire.
Maybe the figures are wrong, but the general
notion. I think you might be off. I'm just thinking of like the Saudi deal and all that different stuff.
I got those figures from Jim Ross himself on the podcast.
Well, he would know more than I would. He would know more than I would.
I'm not going to say it's 100%. I'm just saying it sounds like Tony Khan's got a lot more money than JR has. And so, I mean, there's talent out there to poach, man. I hate to be WWE light, but why not get some of the great people that they kind of let slip, like people like Rusev, people like Brian Myers and Matt Cardona. I think that there's a lot of talent out there, if used properly, could be big superstars. But really, Dom, what it's going to take is that Hall and Nash type surprise, shock, and awe. And you can only get that with somebody like John Cena right now, or somebody like CM Punk, Daniel Bryan. So he's going to have to spend some serious money to get one of those big names in there. But if he wants to take it to the next level, I think that's step number 1.
You think that's step number 1, or could it be step like 3 or 4? Because, if you're thinking from an immediate perspective, I did say this too on the earlier podcast today. It was like, this is a time like, even yesterday, I was expecting like some sort of surprise to be like, okay, because you think about it, NXT's beating you in the ratings overall, not in the main demographic, but overall, and you are at this time too where it's like you got these two shows of Great American Bash going up against Fyter Fest, so it's like name shows. What better time to like kind of really shock everybody than bring somebody in right now where you're like starting to lose in the ratings, but you bring a name in, an established name in, and that's a wrestling memory that stays in people's minds when that happens. Like if you were to do it at this point in time, but like moving forward to today, it's like we talked about it last week a little bit. There's certain things that they could button up on and kind of fix, and hone in on a little bit, like get rid of some of the humor that's done with it. Get rid of a lot of the high flying moves are amazing and great to watch, but ultimately you get desensitized. You see too much of them, so it's like small. Yes, better in small doses, exactly, with a little bit of everything, so to speak, with what some of that stuff is doing. So it's like, but say you had to react from an immediate perspective, and you don't want to come off as too reactionary because, like, either if you're a mainstream promotion, you don't want to be like, okay, well, they did this, so we have to do this. You don't want to shoehorn stuff in. So say from the perspective of next week at Fight for the Fallen, how would you handle this going into next week?
I think to paint with a kind of broad strokes, I think the real step one, as opposed to signing big name talent, the real step one is to focus more on storytelling. And I don't just mean angles. I mean storytelling within the match itself. Let's do some old school stuff. I miss the days of Randy Savage getting heat when he was a heel by rolling out of the ring, intentionally avoiding contact, teasing a lockup and pulling away from it. Let's focus a little bit more on actually telling a story to the fans, trying to get some legitimate heat on heels, because let's face it, Dom, a lot of the heels nowadays sell more shirts than the baby faces, and that's fine. I think it's the state of wrestling today. But like, let's be creative. Let's find new ways to make people legitimately hate MJF. Have him do or say something horrible. Make him annoy the fans during matches they want to see him wrestle, so make him continually dodge matches. I think that there's like a lot of ways to get heat on people nowadays that even the smart marks are going to fall victim to. So they've really got to sit down. There's a great brain trust over at AEW. Obviously, they've got probably collectively 150 years of experience between all their employees or greater. Who knows? I think that if they really sit down and let everybody have their say, they could really have something special. And let me tell you, Dominic, I'm not the type that goes beating the Jim Cornette drum very often, because occasionally the guy is absolutely nuts. But he makes a lot of good points when it comes to storytelling in professional wrestling, good angles, and just kind of using some old school ways. Because as has been proven time and time again, what's old is new again. And I think that the same is the case for pro wrestling.
And I think a lot of it's just like, essentially, you just get to the basics of storytelling, and that's all you really need for pro wrestling in a lot of ways. It's just like that aspect. Okay, good guy, bad guy. They have a conflict. There's stakes at hand. Let's see what we can do. And filling in those the rest of the coloring up the rest of the picture is those particular individuals' personalities and stuff like that, interacting with one another, and that creates the intrigue and having those basic stakes and stuff at hand. Yeah, man. Like, I think it's just a matter of just tightening up the ship a lot of the ways. Having that, allowing those wrestlers and stars to be who they are, but ultimately there's somebody has a final say of like, okay, this passes the test and this doesn't for this time being. We can do this right now. And this is the message we want to ultimately convey, because I feel it's like the freedom of expression is great, but there's a lot of phrase that are coming with it outside of it. That's like nothing's really too tightened up, where there's certain aspects can be, with exceptions of a few things that I feel. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at it for right now.
Well, they've got to walk a fine line when it comes to cutting a promo. Yes, you want to make it your own, and yes, the way the WWE scripts everything is over the top. But let's find a balance in things, because you can't just go completely off the cuff all the time and expect success. It's just unrealistic. Another thing I wanted to mention, Dominic, was so one of the highlight matches, and it would have been even more of a highlight match had we not seen some of this crazy wild stuff all the time. But it was the triple tag team match, I'm sorry, the quad tag team match. You've got FTR and the Young Bucks, and they're squaring off against the Butcher and the Blade. And then remind me, what's the other name?
You're looking so FTR, Young Bucks, Butcher and Blade, and then you had the Lucha Brothers, right? Is that who you said?
Yes. Oh my God, I love the Lucha Brothers.
Yeah, yeah.
But so an incredible match by all rights. They some incredible human feats of athleticism throughout that match. And let me tell you, one of the craziest looking Canadian destroyers I've ever seen. Oh my
gosh, yeah.
But here's the thing. We see Canadian destroyers every week now. And maybe not in that form, but we see some version of the Canadian destroyer pretty darn often now. We also see some crazy over the top stuff. I mean, imagine how much more impact that match would have had if that was something that we saw once a month. Those kind of crazy moves like that Canadian destroyer, I think, could be right up there with Mick Foley coming off the cell. Just one of those oh my God type moments. But it doesn't exist anymore. Like, yes, it was an incredible moment, but is it something that people are buzzing about right now? Will be buzzing about for the next month? Could have been in the 90s, will not be nowadays.
Yeah, no, it's like there's so much different thing. Like it just goes back to the high flying and everything like that. You want to pick and choose your moments. And there was something that happened too. Oh yeah, that's right. So opening match is Private Party versus Omega and Hangman, and defended the titles. There was a spot where Hangman power bombed Isaiah Cassidy on top of Mark Quinn, I believe it was, and then sure enough, that spot happened later on in another match. I think it
Nyla
was.
Rose.
Yes, it was like the same spot, and it's just like that's cool. That was awesome when Hangman did it. It would have been awesome if Nyla did it just on her own and Hangman didn't do it. But it both happened, and I made note of it. It's just like certain little things like that where you be like, okay, get yourself do your shit, get your shit in, and do what you want, but with some exceptions of where if we're gonna see it again in the night, don't make note to not have it happen a second time. It's just like there's a lot of stuff that you see over and over, and it's just those are certain aspects. It's the little details. And speaking of which, is a good segue. Speaking of which, the main event was Orange Cassidy versus Chris Jericho. And I thought somebody that paid attention to little details was Orange Cassidy in this match. If you look close at certain aspects, one that stood out, and I mentioned this on the Daily too today, was Orange Cassidy hit a Falcon Arrow, I think, on Jericho, and he made the pin attempt. And when he made the pin attempt, he put his hand somewhere, I think on his ribs at first, but then he moved it over because it made more sense. He put it down on Jericho's shoulder, to hold him down for a pin attempt. It was just something that I took note of is dude, Orange Cassidy gets all this crap for being this character that's unrealistic, whatever, and all this stuff. But he's paying attention to these little details of making sure that he's telling a story in the match. And I think the story got told really well in that match. And I thought the main event was awesome. I really liked it. What were your thoughts on it? Did you feel differently? Did you feel what stood out or anything? Just shoot your shit here.
I thought, by and large, man, I don't have anything bad to say about it. It's obviously two great athletes. Orange Cassidy, I think, has proven himself as not just being a joke guy. He can go in the ring. And it's almost like you mentioned last week where he kind of hits this threshold and he's like, okay, I'm done playing around. And he becomes serious, and it's very interesting. I will say, never really noticed the size differential when it comes to Orange Cassidy. Obviously, it's harder to tell on TV. Never really noticed it until he got into the ring with a guy like Chris Jericho, who is like, he's from that old school wrestling, you get the broad shoulders and the big biceps kind of deal. And so you see those two in the ring together, and it's Jericho. It looks like a King Kong Bundy in the ring with a young Shawn Michaels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He looked a lot just more, just bigger, just wider. So that stuck out a little bit. I thought that Orange Cassidy got the happy feet there for the finish, and they kind of blew the Judas effect at the end, because it was like very coordinated spot where Orange Cassidy was supposed to be coming in and just gets caught with a Judas effect. And I think he came in a little bit too fast, so he had the happy feet, and then he took the hit. So, but other than that, man, I thought it was a great match, great athleticism, kind of a nice coming out for Orange Cassidy, I think, in a lot of ways. I think he's got to go singles. I don't know if being with the best friends is helping him much. I'd like to see him just on his own, in a lone wolf type role, just like too cool for everybody type situation. And I think that's where he could really blossom.
I think you could do that, and I think you could make the transition pretty easy, because like Orange Cassidy is that laissez-faire kind of attitude. So like you have him kind of break away, like he's still friends with the best friends, but he's just like, all right, I'm just gonna do this.
He's just his own guy. Yeah. I think that would be cool. Dom, I gotta say too, another guy that I'd like to see go solo is the Butcher. He struggles in the ring at times. I've seen him get a little bit confused. I think he's still a little bit green. But I think that he's got all the potential in the world to be a big star in the wrestling business. He's got a great look. He's got great size. I would like to see him go solo. And I mentioned this on Twitter a while back. I think it would be interesting to see a guy like him, and not quite like an Undertaker, but almost like a Jack the Ripper type role of just this guy who's like kind of coming after people in AEW. I think it could really be something that works well. And I mean, God knows he's got that Jack the Ripper look with that monocle thing. And I don't know, can he cut a promo? Have you seen a promo of his yet?
That's what I was gonna say, and I was even gonna mention this before, like of things that we need to work, that AEW needs to work on, is like, no, I haven't seen a promo from him or the Blade. I don't even know what their voice sounds like. I don't know anything. So it's just like, they've been on the show since late October of 2019, and we haven't seen anything like, unless you're watching maybe a Road to Something or BTE, I don't even know. But like, as if you're just trying to attract a casual fan base, which is going to be the ones that watch cable television, we, aside from that, their looks and what they do in the ring, that's all you know about the Butcher and Blade. You don't know anything too much about anything else, And
yeah,
it's something that a lot of the talent in AEW needs that opportunity. I don't think I think there's time to create it too, give or take. I understand you only have a 2-hour show each week and everything, and you have to get a certain point across. But I think some of those points, it doesn't take a whole lot to have put a mic in front of Butcher and Blade after the match and be like, oh yeah, we got fucked up, but listen, we're coming back from this. Or like, they say something creepy, or the Butcher just stares at the interviewer and then like maybe says something and then walks away. Something to convey like more depth to those guys, because they got a great look. And I mean, I'm with you on the Butcher as like a unique singles individual. I feel like him and the Blade together though are just fine at where they are, and they should be established as a tag team before you break him off. Because I mean, I think the Blade has his own unique look for himself too, and I think them together will complement one another if put in the right position in spotlight. So
I think so too. And I don't see any issue with them being on their own for a while. But I mean, if I were in charge of AEW, I'd be looking at the Butchers like, I can see him have a big feud with everybody in the company. Dom, another thing that another thing that I wanted to mention about that match in particular, though, was FTW. Man, Dom, the stuff that they do.
FTR.
Oh my gosh, FTW. There was the
we'll
FTW.
We'll get to that.
There's too many damn letters, Dominic. FTR. Man, their ability in the ring, absolutely unparalleled. Those guys have really, really got it. Just like the crispness of what they do, the psychology behind what they're up to in the ring. They're always just like fully invested in what's going on. You never see them like mentally prepping for the next spot. They're just very crisp, and I'm fully in on them being the best tag team in the world after seeing some of that.
How do you think it went with them and the Young Bucks in general, like them all working together and all that stuff? What did you think about that?
I think it's a cool angle. I'm hoping that it's a build up to a big feud between the two, and like here's another area where going old school could really work. I mean, let's drag it out. Let's kind of like they're doing with this impending Kenny Omega and Hangman Page deal. Like drag it out. Let's let it sit for a while and simmer and get better and better until finally these guys have to face each other. And I mean, man, it's, hanging from the rafters whenever that finally happens if they do it right. I would love to see that. But yeah, those guys, some of the old school stuff needs to come back, and those guys are walking, talking evidence of it. And by the way, Dom, you'd mentioned promos before. I would love to see AEW go back to the old recipe where they've got a day of promos, right? They've got somebody, Tony Schiavone, standing in the back, and he's got, okay, I'm here with the Butcher and the Blade who are facing, etc. this weekend. And what do you guys have to say about it?
Yeah.
And so they can put their little promo, and you just place these throughout the program, and it's just that easy. People get to hear what they sound like. They can get themselves over, if they know what they're doing. And we can start to like actually build some feuds because we've got guys who are talking about each other. So it's a pretty simple formula. I wish it'd go back to some of the old school ways. Look, not all of it's good. There was bad wrestling in every single era, but let's take the good stuff and use it.
Yes. No, I mean, yeah, it's always good to harken back on certain things and stuff that isn't utilized current day's product. You can utilize again. It's fresh and new because you have new talents doing it and stuff like that.
That's it.
Complete aside, you've gotten the Dax Hardwood comparisons before, right? Your parents.
What's that?
You've gotten the Dax Hardwood comparisons before, right? With how you looked and stuff like that. Has somebody ever told you to look like Dax Hardwood or Scott Dawson?
No.
You haven't?
No. Nobody's ever told me
I'm
that.
kind of shocked. I thought it would. I thought you would have got that, actually.
No. But I'll take it as a compliment because I'm a big fan of his work.
Yeah, that's good shit. So, speaking of good shit, what'd you think of the FTW title getting reintroduced?
I wasn't crazy about it.
Really? Really?
No. So you know me, I love Taz. I love everything that he does. But like Brian Cage is a separate entity. Let's not do a rerun on some of the stuff that was really cool in the past. FTW. So this is like, it reminds me a little bit of Hulk Hogan giving his ring to Abyss in TNA.
That was, I don't know. I'll disagree, but go on. Yeah.
Maybe it's not that absurd, but it's like when I saw it, it was a cringe moment where I was just like, this is my championship. This is the thing that I was great with, and now there you go. Like gives it to his new disciple, and I'm like, come on. Like the promos are good enough. His look is good enough. Having Taz there at ringside, a legit badass, putting him over, it's good enough. We don't need him wearing the FTW championship. Now, maybe I'm looking at it all wrong, and this is going to be like a champion versus champion type thing. That's how they'll kind of do it, right? Where he's going to be facing the AEW champion. He's like, I don't care about your championship. I'm the real champion. I mean, that kind of stuff, it can work, but I don't know. They're walking on thin ice with that FTW championship.
I totally disagree. I think it was great. I liked it a lot because I mean, it might be the big tell, obviously, that Cage might not be winning the championship next week, but I feel that's something that you can really help build upon and define Cage as a character too, because he's like, Taz put that belt over the FTW title, and he's like, this is like a badass belt, and if you had this belt, you were the badass. And so like he gives it to Cage, and it's something that Cage can just fuel off of. And I feel even whatever happens next week at their match, if like Cage loses or something, he could just even go on just this immediate tear where he just tears everybody apart with that FTW title. And like, or like, I really like what you said too, like how you kind of make it, you almost make it where he's like, nah, I don't give a shit about your title. This is my title, and I will just want to kick your ass, kind of thing. I think that's kind of a neat aspect of things too. Marcus, I don't know. I'm not with you on the old, well, here it is. This is for you.
Well,
I like.
my whole thing when it comes to titles, Dom, is that it's got to mean something, right? And by that I mean titles mean I don't want to lose this. Like, this is something that I've worked really hard to earn, and I don't want to lose it. Does Brian Cage have any chance of not having that title after the match? Like, is Taz just gonna go, well, all right, well, he lost, so okay, I'll give you the title. No. So to me, the title's a prop, and it's useless. Now, unless they do it in the way where, like I said, where it's like, I don't need your title to validate myself. I'm just gonna kick the crap out of you. This is the title. Like, this is my title.
I bet you that's what we'll see. Like he'll
Well,
just beat the shit out of him, and that's gonna be it. Like, and then maybe he'll move on, or I don't know. But like, I'm with you on that. Like, you want to make sure like he holds that up to more. You want to create stakes and intrigue for that belt in itself. And Taz did it back in his day, and now it's time for Cage to do it. This is the opportunity to do it.
so I mean, if that title's for the badass, then theoretically, if Jon Moxley beats the badass Brian Cage, that makes him more of a badass, and he should have the title, according to what Taz said. So it's I don't know. That's why they're kind of on thin ice with me. Also, and this is just me, the Hogan comparison. It was just like, ugh, no. I just had a flash.
I don't know. That was bad. That was just like, I don't know, but that was just Hogan like picking. I think I remember like being back then and being like, oh, and our wrestling fandom back then was like, oh, that'd be great if AJ Styles was the next Ric Flair. Remember that? Like we thought that was kind of cool, and I think that's fucking dumb right now.
Right.
But like, you look at but even being like back then and watching like oh, who's Hogan gonna like kind of annoy as the next person? He's like, and like, I love Abyss. I think he's a great wrestler and stuff, like, but he just does not fit that bill of like what you would have thought like Hogan to choose or anybody like that. And
and how Abyss, like, he gained strength from wearing the ring.
Power of the it's the ring, brother. It's my ring I gave you, dude. That's what it is.
It was awful. But yeah, so I mean, maybe I just had a douche chill flashback. But I hope that they do it the right way.
I don't think.
Like I said,
I don't. It's on the same kind of comparison of like what you were saying with last week with Lesnar and Heyman and Taz and Cage. I don't think they're on the same wavelength, and this one's even more far apart than that. I think you just might have just got the flashback of like, yeah, having that ownership of I don't know. It's bad.
As I said last week, though, I love Taz and Brian Cage together. I love the pairing of like these two guys, the former badass and the new badass, and they're working together. It could really be something. And by the way, I mean, let's face it, we've got coming down the pike probably after his blow off with Jon Moxley. It's going to be him and Cody, and then on the outside, Arn and Taz, which, I mean, let me say, is a masterpiece in the works.
Yeah, that should be real good. Speaking of next week, though, too, we mentioned it already, but it's gonna. Do you know what the other headline matches for next week? Did you see this one?
I probably did. Refresh me.
It's FTR versus the Lucha Brothers.
Well, I'm sure that's going to be something. I hope that FTR forces them to work their style. What I'd love to see is an old school tag team like that say, like, we're going to do everything we can to stop your high spots. So every time one of the Lucha
I'm
Brothers
sure it's going to be part of it.
Roll out of the ring, just like get some heat on them. Why not?
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be part of it.
Stopping some of these high spots are gonna make some of these smart marks really cringe, and could get some real heat on FTR.
Yeah, no doubt. Real quick, before we close it out, what'd you think of Dusty? Hello. What'd you? This is doing a run. He's doing a running, baby.
It's a Dusty finish.
It's the Dusty finish. Uh, um, yeah, what was your thoughts on Lance Archer versus Joey Janela in that hardcore match? Or was it a hardcore match? It was just a match. It was just a match.
Yeah, well, I think it was like there was like no rules or something because at
Was
one
there no
point,
rules?
well, he put Janela through a table, so I
Yeah, it's
assume there's
true.
no rules.
Yeah.
I thought it was good. I mean, that's one of those things, man, where I kind of wish that the enhancement talents were featured throughout the program because like we all knew what was going to happen in that match, right? I mean, was there any question in your mind that Lance Archer was going to go over or wasn't going to over?
Yeah, no.
We all knew right out of the gate exactly what that was going to be. Joey Janela, I think he's a pretty good wrestler. Does not have the best look, but you know the guy's good in the ring. You'll give him that. But I mean, when it comes to like a size matchup and somebody that they're clearly trying to push away at their Lance Archer, I mean, I kind of checked out on the match because I'm like, I know exactly where this one's going.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was a fun match to watch. I just wanted to see how they would get across a lot of Archer's like violence in it and what the balance it would play in getting the hardcore aspect of it in, but not like overdoing it. And I thought they did a really good job with it. Ultimately, I thought they did.
Yeah, I thought the involvement with Sonny Kiss, I thought
Yes.
that,
Yeah.
that was cool.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty neat. Anything else before we close out? Anything else stick out to you or you want to make mention of that I may have missed?
No, I think you did a good job. I'm loving this slow build. I mean, of the Hangman Page Kenny Omega inevitable feud. You can see it kind of coming down the pike, and I think that those guys, again, you know, if you work it right, that's one of those ones that you could do for a full year, a feud that you could have for a year, where it's like they keep meeting in tag team matches, or like as tag team partners, they keep slowly drifting apart, and there's tension, and then they start tagging against each other after they lose the belts, and then you start slowly just working your way toward maybe a series of single matches, you know. So I can see a bright future. Again, man, as we've been discussing, it's all about just handling it the right way. All the pieces are in place. You know, it's like Tony Khan is holding, you know, the full house. All he's got to do is lay it down.
Yeah.
So I hope he does. Apparently, Matt Cardona has signed with somebody. I think he keeps saying July 18th
Oh
is a
yeah,
big
well
day
that's the
for
last
him.
day for everybody. That's the last
For
day for
what?
everybody. For everybody that got released, that's their 90-day thing ending. For
Oh,
that's why. Yeah.
well,
So
yeah, something I probably should have known. But so we got some exciting stuff coming up. Hopefully this month, at least I hope so. And yeah, man, let's keep hoping that the program just gets better and better. Right now, we're at like 1992 WCW, right, where it was like there were some really great things, and then there was like Abdullah the Butcher getting electrocuted. You know, we're working our way toward the NWO days.
yeah, no, ultimately too, I thought like yeah, I mean we had our criticisms, but I thought it was a great show last night, and I thought ultimately like the the main event stars you showed were the ones that should have got showed, but like I wanted to see more Cody. I know you don't want to keep stars on each and every week, but he's one of your stars. I think he should have been a little bit more showcased last night in some form or fashion, and then yeah, real quick too. I want to see something different with Kenny Omega and another personality too, Christopher Daniels. I think they could use a little bit of a shakeup. I don't know if that's just me, but I feel like you got to almost turn both those guys heel in some form or fashion, and you can have a way more enticing run with those guys, to build upon.
I like the idea of Christopher Daniels going heel. Thing with Kenny Omega, I think the reason they put him into a tag team was because they know that they can only have so many guys vying for the World Heavyweight Championship. And
Yeah,
Kenny Omega, if he's a single, he's one of those guys. And so, so I think as of right now, they're saying, Kenny, we know that he's going to hold that title at some point. We know that Kenny's going to be the flag bearer of our company at some point. But so in the meantime, let's give everybody else a run. Let's build everybody else up, right? And then Kenny can do his tag team championship thing, feud with Hangman Page, which I assume Kenny will come out on top of, and then he starts making his run for the title. At least that's my guess.
uh, you know. the thing with that is like Kenny Omega is a star to wrestling fans, but he's not a star to like mainstream yet. You want to introduce him.
Which is why I think that's exactly it. I think that's exactly why they're trying to show people what he's got through being in the tag team division and slowly build him that way, while also building other people in the main event division, and then you move him up.
He's already a star that you have. Why wouldn't you make him already in that position? That's my question. I feel
because,
this.
like you said, he's more of like an indie darling, right? Or like a Japan.
You don't
darling.
want him in that light though anymore. You want he's your guy, he's your star. You want to make him a star. And I honestly like that's one thing I don't think, maybe it's the fact that, they want to not do that to themselves. Or like, okay, they're the EVP, so like we don't want to put ourselves in that position, which I get. But the fact of the matter is like that's one of your stars. You want to put him in that position right off the bat, so people are like, okay, that's a guy I'm invested in right there, And I don't know, I feel like him in the tag team with Hangman has been great, but like even before that, Kenny was just kind of floating there. I felt in a lot of ways where it wasn't like they were trying to find a position for him. Same with Paige. So putting them together did make sense, and like they got their own spin off of it. But I think it's getting to that point in time, and I think they're teasing it a little bit too on BTA. It's getting back to the cleaner kind of stuff. So maybe we'll see that. But I think him going heel for a long time would be pretty awesome, and maybe the right move to do.
Hey, if they do it right, I'm game for just about any angle. Just done the right way. Which again, sometimes they nail, sometimes they fall short of.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, baby.
Yeah, you can't finish me off. No.
Pull me out, whooping on me like crazy.
Listen here, you son of a bitch. What you doing?
when the Dusty Rhodes impressions comes out, that's when we gotta wrap it.
Yes. How do people find you on social media there, Degenerate Brother?
You can find me sharing a lot of Dallas Cowboys stuff at Keystone NPD.
That's gonna hook the people. Way to do that, Mark. What a plug.
I think it'll come on. It's America's team. Everybody likes them.
I did encourage people to trash you on social media when I had to plug our show. I was like, yeah, follow Marcus on Keystone MPD and feel free to send him some insults.
Oh, of course. I welcome them.
Yeah, why not?
Every once in a while, you gotta get knocked down a couple pegs.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Marcus, really nice talking the rap here with you at AEW. It's been a real treat, so to speak.
Aren't you gonna tell them your Twitter handle? What's going on here?
Yeah, you can follow me. Oh, geez, I guess I should plug some of the shit I did.
Just assume that everybody already follows you.
Oh yes, me and my near 1,000 followers. My hundreds and hundreds. Follow me on Twitter at Dominic D'Angelo. Also, just be on the lookout. I just did 2 interviews right before I finished with Marcus. What a drop I took from interviewing wrestling stars to speaking with my brother.
Let me say it, Dom. If ever anybody needs a Dax Harwood guy to come to like a birthday party or whatever, I can fill it.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, but I just finished an hour-long interview with the Von Erichs, Marshall and Ross, both amazing dudes. It's such a ultimate baby faces, and you'll see this in the interview when it drops. Such good dudes. Took plenty of time. We discussed so much different stuff about their careers, their dad, everything, and their faith. It was really, really cool. And then I finished an hour-plus long interview with WCW's Crowbar. And dude, like, we knew Crowbar as like this maniac guy that just had a crowbar and essentially was just nuts. Like, there's so much different stuff that he's done outside of wrestling and that he's done in wrestling since then. It was cool to shoot the shit with him about that, Star Wars, everything like that. It's a really, really good interview. I'm excited for people to see that one too. And there's just a lot of good content going on in WrestleZone right now. WrestleZone podcast. Then we have interviews with Deonna Purrazzo. Taylor Wilde, who's making a comeback from TNA. She's coming back into wrestling and talking about her return there. So much, a lot of different good stuff to check out on that feed, as well as this show. So there you go. But yeah, Mark, We could talk next week. We'll be tipping back a couple with the Sibs this weekend, and it should be good times. So there we go.
Yeah, Dominic. Before I let you go, I got one request. I want you to do an interview with Scotty Riggs. I feel like he's a guy with a bunch of stories. He used to drive Jake.
Okay.
He used to drive Jake Roberts around. Allegedly, there's a crazy story about him holding a large quantity of money while driving Jake Roberts around. So I would love to hear more about the life and times of Scotty Riggs, who, by the way, again, another incredibly talented person. I think if used differently, we'd be telling a whole different story about him right now.
Oh, I thought you were going to plug the fact. I started shaking my head because I thought you were plugging the fact that he was a Cowboys fan.
No, but that is, let me say, that helps. The Undertaker, it's America's team.
Austin, was it Austin? Cowboys fan?
Sounds correct to me. Eddie Guerrero.
The top star should be a Cowboys fan, after all. Gold Dust, Dustin's he's a Cowboys fan.
Dude. Interview them all, Dom.
It's just me and Brian Myers as Jets fans. That's it. That's all I got.
That's all you got.
All right.
Sign it off, Dom.
Toodaloo, everybody.
Thanks for watching, guys.